Welcome, dear listener. Tonight, let the gentle rhythm of my voice guide you across calm seas and into a tale of mystery and wonder. Picture a quiet tavern by the shore where shadows flicker and secrets linger. Imagine Captain Lucian Storm, a man of courage and curiosity, holding a map unlike any other, a map leading to a place forgotten by time. As the waves softly rise and fall, close your eyes and let the story carry you into the misty unknown, where legends whisper and statues watch silently. Let your breath slow, your mind drift, and your body relax as the adventure unfolds. Soon, sleep will wrap around you like the stillness of the sea. Now, let's begin. The sea was calm the night Captain Lucian Storm found the map, as if the waters themselves held their breath. The tavern had been nearly empty, save for a few drunken sailors slumped over wooden tables, their snores mingling with the faint creaks of the floorboards. Lucian was nursing a glass of rum when an old man stumbled in, shrouded in a tattered cloak and speaking in whispers. The man slumped beside Lucian, his fingers clutching a stone map, smooth yet etched with strange, delicate symbols that shimmered under the dim light. He leaned in, his breath heavy with salt and the weight of ancient secrets. "You seek treasure, Captain?" the man asked, voice as cracked as a splintered hull. "Treasure beyond gold or jewels? A treasure guarded by legends, by stone soldiers whose hearts beat no more." Lucian narrowed his eyes, intrigued and wary. "What do you know, old man?" With trembling hands, the man pushed the stone map toward Lucian. "This map," he rasped, "leads to the island of living statues, a place cursed and hidden from those without the heart to face its truth. Statues, they say, that come to life at nightfall to guard the treasures they can never touch. Only the boldest dare to claim it, if they don't lose themselves first." Lucian's heart quickened. An island lost to time, a treasure untouched, and a curse that lingered in whispered legends. He took the map, tracing its strange symbols with his fingers, feeling the smooth, cold stone against his skin. It was lighter than he expected, as if its weight was more burden than substance. "Why give this to me?" he asked. But the old man had already begun to fade, his form dissolving like mist, until only the scent of salt and a faint chill in the air remained. The next morning, Lucian stared at the map in the clear light of day. His crew gathered around him in silence. The map had an unsettling beauty, its surface carved with intricate markings that hinted at lands both real and imagined. At the center of the map was a spiral leading inward, a path that seemed to twist upon itself, impossible and alluring. It was not marked by usual directions, but symbols that seemed to shift as he looked at them, each one a mystery in itself. "Are we really sailing for it, Captain?" his first mate Elias asked. voice heavy with skepticism and a touch of fear. "We are," Lucian replied, his tone firm, though he could feel a strange pulse beneath his fingers as he held the map, like a heartbeat echoing from the stone itself. "Prepare the ship. We leave with the next tide." The crew murmured among themselves, whispering about the dangers of a cursed island. But they had all followed Lucian through storms and shipwrecks, across seas uncharted and filled with shadows. They trusted him, even if they feared the unknown lurking within his new obsession. As they set sail, the sky darkened, clouds gathering above them as if for warning. The sea shifted from tranquil to ominous, waves rising and falling in slow, deliberate movements. Lucian stood at the helm, clutching the map, his gaze fixed on the horizon, where the air grew heavy with anticipation. For days they sailed, the map guiding them in ways no compass could. Each night, Lucian pored over its symbols, finding patterns in its twisting lines that seemed to change with each passing hour. The spiral led them deeper into uncharted waters, each wave pulling them closer to the place where legend breathed. Finally, on the 6th night, a thick mist rolled across the deck, carrying with it a silence so complete that even the sea seemed to pause. The island loomed ahead, its shape obscured by fog, a shadow against the moonlit sky. From a distance, Lucian could make out strange forms scattered along its shores. Statues, still as death, yet somehow watching. The closer they sailed, the heavier the air became, pressing upon them with an invisible weight that tugged at their souls. The crew whispered in awe and fear, eyes wide as they stared at the shore. Statues stood frozen in unnatural poses, some with hands raised, others in battle stances, their faces blank yet eerily expressive. They were not crafted from smooth marble or polished stone. These figures were rough, as if chiseled by unseen hands in a frenzy. They seemed alive even in their stillness, each one watching, waiting. Lucian felt a chill creep up his spine, but his heart raced with exhilaration. He knew they had reached the island of living statues, a place lost to all maps except the one carved in stone. And though he stood at the threshold of a mystery that defied understanding, he could not shake the feeling that it was meant to be there, drawn by the ancient pulse of the island itself. The ship anchored, and Lucian stepped onto the shore, his boots sinking into the sand. As he looked back, he saw the crew hesitate, fear etched on their faces. But he felt the pull of the map, a silent call that echoed from the statues and into the very heart of the island. And as he took his first step forward, he heard a faint sound, a heartbeat, or perhaps an echo of his own, and knew that the journey had only just begun. The fog thickened as Captain Lucian Storm led his crew further inland, swallowing them in a damp, ghostly silence. The statues seemed to line their path like sentinels, each figure frozen mid-motion, a a soldier clutching his sword, a dancer poised in an elegant arc, an animal rearing back as if startled by an unseen foe. They were silent, but there was a presence about them, an energy that felt almost alive, watching and waiting. The deeper they went, the more Lucian felt the weight of the island's mystery pressing upon him. The path was narrow and winding, bordered by dense jungle that seemed to pulse with an otherworldly glow under the dim moonlight. Strange symbols were carved into the tree trunks, spirals and arcs that resembled those on the stone map. Lucian ran his fingers over one, feeling a faint warmth as if the mark itself were alive, a heartbeat beneath the bark. "Captain, what are we even looking for here?" Elias's voice broke the silence, his tone filled with apprehension. Lucian turned to his first mate, his face set in a determined frown. "There's a treasure here that no map but ours can guide us to," he replied. "The statues are here for a reason. They're guarding something, and it's ours to find." As if in response, a sudden wind swept through the jungle, rustling leaves and whispering through the statues. The air grew colder, and Lucian sensed a change, a shift in the very essence of the island. The statues seemed to tremble in the wind, though none of the crew could say for sure if they had truly moved or if it was a trick of the light. Then, without warning, a sharp clang echoed through the night, like metal striking stone. The crew spun around, eyes wide, searching for the source of the sound. Lucian's gaze fell on a statue they had passed only moments before, a figure of a young woman in a flowing gown, her hands raised as if in greeting. But now, her head had turned ever so slightly, and her eyes, once vacant, gleamed with a faint, unnatural light. Did that statue just move?" one of the crew whispered, voice quivering. Before Lucian could answer, another sound filled the air, a slow, grinding noise like ancient stone shifting after centuries of stillness. One by one, the statues around them began to turn, their stone faces coming to life with expressions of rage, sorrow, and haunting emptiness. Their eyes glowed faintly, as if each one held a fragment of the island's cursed soul. The crew stumbled back, terror gripping them as the statues began to move, stepping forward in jerky, unnatural motions. Lucian felt his heart pound, but he held his ground, his mind racing to make sense of what he was witnessing. These were not mere sculptures. They were guardians, bound by some ancient magic to protect the secrets buried deep within the island. "Elias, stay close," he ordered, his voice steady despite the chaos around them. "The map brought us here. It'll guide us through whatever curse holds these statues." The statues advanced slowly, surrounding them, their movements synchronized, as if driven by a single will. The crew stood frozen, too frightened to draw their weapons, knowing that steel would be useless against stone. Then, as suddenly as it had begun, The statues halted, their glowing eyes fixed on Lucian. For a moment, the island was silent again, the statues standing still in a haunting tableau of petrified rage. Lucian felt a shiver run through him, but he refused to look away, meeting the hollow gaze of the statue nearest to him. In that moment, he understood. The statues were watching him, not as an enemy, but as a judge, weighing his worth. The island was testing them, deciding whether they were worthy to pass. The map had led them to this place, and now it was up to them to prove themselves. Summoning his courage, Lucian stepped forward, reaching out a hand to touch the nearest statue. As his fingers brushed against the cold stone, a faint warmth pulsed beneath his touch, like a heartbeat hidden deep within the rock. The statue's eyes glowed brighter, and for a moment, Lucian felt a connection, as if the island itself had acknowledged him. But the moment was brief, and as he withdrew his hand, the statues resumed their vigil, their eyes dimming once more. The air grew still, and the jungle around them returned to silence, broken only by the soft, unsteady breaths of his crew. Lucian turned to them, his gaze fierce. The island knows we're here, and it's watching. This isn't just about treasure, it's about proving ourselves worthy. The crew nodded, their fear tempered by the resolve in Lucian's voice. They had faced storms and battles, and they would face this island's curse together. With newfound determination, they pressed on, following the twisted path that led deeper into the heart of the island, where they hoped to uncover the secrets hidden beneath stone and shadow. The statues remained behind them, silent once more, but Lucian could feel their gaze lingering, a reminder that they were never truly alone on this island of the living stone. The jungle thickened as Captain Lucian Storm and his crew ventured deeper into the heart of the island. Shadows draped across their path like curtains, muffling the moonlight and leaving only faint traces of silvery glow. The path grew narrower, winding through twisted trees whose branches seemed to reach out like bony fingers. At times, Lucian felt as if the forest itself was watching, breathing, and waiting. Lucian's fingers tightened around the stone map, its strange spiraled carvings now warm to the touch. He studied it in the shifting light, the patterns seeming to pulse with a rhythm that matched his own heartbeat. A feeling of inevitability filled him, an awareness that something profound lay ahead, hidden within the depths of this cursed island. As they moved forward, Elias spoke in a hushed voice. "Captain, I've heard tales of curses, but I've never seen statues come to life before. Why guard a treasure with such horrors?" Lucian glanced at his first mate, his gaze thoughtful. "A treasure like this has power beyond gold or jewels. It was never meant for the ordinary or the faint-hearted. Only those willing to face the island's curse could hope to claim it." He paused, looking at the path ahead with a fierce gleam in his eyes. But there's more to this curse than we know. The statues were once alive, I'm certain of it. The crew fell silent, absorbing his words as they continued their cautious trek. The jungle gave way to a clearing, where an ancient stone altar stood, shrouded in vines and surrounded by silent statues whose faces bore expressions of despair and longing. At the center of the altar was a carving, a hollow space shaped like a heart. Lucian approached the altar, drawn to the hollow. In its depths lay a single stone, polished and gleaming with a faint reddish glow. The stone heart. It pulsed faintly as if alive, its surface shimmering with an otherworldly light. Lucian felt a strange pull toward it, an allure that whispered promises of power, knowledge, and untold riches. One of the crew, a man named Marco, stepped forward, reaching a hand toward the stone heart. But before he could touch it, Lucian seized his arm, holding him back. "Don't touch it," Lucian warned, his voice low and urgent. "This is no ordinary stone. It's the heart of the curse, the reason the statues guard this place. Whoever touches it becomes bound to the island, cursed to stand vigil for eternity." Marco looked at him with wide eyes, stepping back quickly. The crew exchanged uneasy glances, their faces pale in the eerie glow of the stone heart. Lucian's gaze lingered on the heart-shaped stone, his mind racing as he considered the price he might pay to claim it. The island's curse was clear. The stone heart held immense power, but it came with a cost. The sorcerer who created this place wanted to keep the treasure hidden, Lucian said, more to himself than to his crew. He cursed these statues to guard it, binding their souls to the island. If we take the stone heart, we release them from their vigil, but only by taking their place. Elias swallowed hard, his face grim. "Then what hope have we, Cap'n? If touching it dooms us, how do we claim what's ours?" Lucian's mind churned, the weight of the decision pressing down on him. He had come for the treasure, lured by tales of riches and glory. But now he saw the truth. It was no mere wealth waiting here, but something far deeper. A choice that carried the weight of life, death, and eternity. He turned to his crew, his voice steady. "There's only one way forward. I'll take the stone heart. And if I'm bound to this place, you'll carry the treasure back to our ship. The curse is mine to bear." The crew protested, voices rising in fear and loyalty, but Lucian silenced them with a raised hand. His eyes held a fierce resolve, a willingness to sacrifice himself for the treasure that had lured them here. With slow, deliberate movements, he reached out, his fingers brushing the smooth surface of the stone heart. The warmth beneath his hand grew, spreading through him like fire, igniting a power he had never felt before. The ground trembled, and the statues around the altar began to stir, their stone eyes glowing brighter, filled with a kind of relief and sorrow. As Lucian lifted the stone heart from the altar, he felt a surge of energy, as if the island itself had accepted him. He could hear whispers in his mind, the voices of those who had guarded this place, their souls bound to the curse. In that moment, he understood the weight of his choice, the timeless burden he had claimed. The statues around him turned, their faces softened, no longer twisted with rage or despair. One by one, they began to move away, disappearing into the shadows of the jungle, their souls finally freed from their stone prisons. The curse had been lifted, but only by passing it to Lucian. He felt his body grow heavy, his movements slow and stiff. His crew looked on in horror as his skin began to harden, taking on the same stony texture as the statues before him. Elias stepped forward, his face etched with sorrow. "Captain, we can't leave you like this." But Lucian only shook his head, a faint smile on his lips. "Take the treasure and go, Elias. This was my choice, and my destiny." As his body transformed into stone, Lucian's last sight was of his crew, their faces marked with grief and gratitude. And as the island fell silent once more, he stood there, a new guardian among the statues, his spirit bound to the island, his watch eternal. In the heart of the island, Captain Lucian Storm's crew gathered around the newly emptied altar, their faces pale with awe and dread. The statues, once guardians of the treasure, had vanished into the shadows, leaving behind a silence that felt as vast and heavy as the sea itself. All that remained was the stone heart in Lucian's hands, still glowing faintly, a silent witness to his sacrifice. As Lucian's fingers closed around the heart-shaped stone, he could feel its power pulsing, echoing through his veins like the beat of a hidden drum. The ground beneath them rumbled, shifting, as though the island itself was adjusting to the presence of its new guardian. The altar, once closed and silent, began to open, the stones sliding apart with a grinding groan. From the depths, a cavernous chamber revealed itself, filled with treasures that sparkled in the dim light. A wealth that surpassed the wildest dreams of any pirate. Gold coins spilled from chests, gems glistened like captured starlight, and artifacts, ancient, delicate, and priceless, were scattered across the stone floor. But there was something otherworldly about the cavern. The treasure was beautiful, yes, but it carried a weight, an unspoken warning, as though each item had a story, a memory bound to it. The crew hesitated, sensing the eerie aura that clung to the wealth, a reminder of those who had tried to claim it and failed. Elias, ever faithful, turned to Lucian, who stood motionless, his body already hardening, his skin taking on the sheen of polished stone. "Captain," he whispered, voice thick with grief and awe. "What are we to do now?" Lucian's eyes, still sharp and alive within his transforming face, met Elias's gaze. "Take it," he rasped, the words escaping with difficulty. as though his mouth had already turned to granite. "Take what you can, but be swift. The island has allowed us this passage, but it will not wait forever." The crew moved with a solemn urgency, filling sacks with gold and gems, their fingers lingering on relics of past empires and ancient dynasties. As they worked, the air grew heavier, thick with the weight of unseen eyes. Though the statues had vanished into the shadows, their presence lingered, a silent reminder of the fate that awaited those who took more than their share. The crew sensed this, their hands moving respectfully, almost reverently, as if each item was a life they were borrowing for just a moment. Elias moved toward Lucian, watching as his captain's features solidified, each line and contour preserved in stone. "Is there no other way, Captain?" he asked, a plea buried within the question. Lucian's gaze softened, a finer spark of humanity shining in his eyes. "No, Elias. I've chosen this path, and now it chooses me." He tried to lift his hand, to offer a last gesture, but his fingers had frozen, locked around the stone heart. "Go, take the treasure. Remember the cost of it. And tell my story, so others may learn the price of seeking what lies beyond reason." The chamber seemed to pulse around them, shadows lengthening as if the island was closing in. One of the crew let out a sharp cry as the entrance to the cavern began to narrow, the stones shifting back into place, sealing the treasure within. The crew scrambled, each man carrying as much as he could bear, their hearts pounding with both exhilaration and terror. The weight of Lucian's words lay heavy on them, a warning that echoed with every step they took. Elias lingered for a heartbeat longer, his gaze locked on Lucian's stone face, memorizing the look of calm acceptance that had settled over him. In that moment, Elias saw not just a captain, but a legend, a man who had given his life to seek the unknown, to unravel mysteries that would remain forever bound to the island. With a final whispered farewell, Elias turned and fled, his arms laden with treasure as the walls of the cavern groaned and shifted, sealing Lucian within its depths. Outside, the crew staggered onto the beach, sacks of gold and gems clinking as they dropped to their knees, panting. They watched as the island trembled, as if sighing in satisfaction, the earth settling over the treasure once more, burying it under layers of stone and shadow. They knew that Lucian was now part of the island, his spirit woven into the very soil, his watch eternal. As dawn broke, casting pale light over the strange, silent island, the crew made their way to the ship. They turned only once to look back, watching as the statues that lined the shore seemed to shift, their forms now eerily familiar. In the distance, Elias thought he saw a figure that resembled Lucian, standing tall and resolute, his stone eyes gazing out over the sea. And as they sailed away, the crew carried with them both the treasure and the memory of a captain who had dared to embrace the curse. a man who had willingly sacrificed his freedom for the secrets of the island of living statues. They spoke in hushed tones, vowing to honor his last command, to share his tale so that others might learn the cost of a treasure that belonged not to men, but to the spirits of the forgotten. Their sacks were heavy with gold, but their hearts bore a heavier weight. The legacy of Captain Lucian Storm, the pirate who became a legend, a guardian, and a warning to all who dared seek the mysteries of the island. The island grew small on the horizon as Captain Lucian Storm's crew sailed away, the weight of both treasure and sorrow pressing upon their hearts. They spoke in low voices, as though afraid their words might carry back to the haunted shores, where Lucian now stood among the stone guardians. Yet, even in their silence, the tale of their captain's sacrifice began to weave itself into legend, a haunting melody that lingered in the salty air. Back on the island, as the mist began to settle again, a profound quiet fell over the jungle. The path leading to the heart of the island was once more lined with statues, their stony forms frozen in poses of solemnity and watchfulness. And there, at the center of them all, stood Lucian, transformed fully into stone. His face was carved with a strange, haunting serenity, his eyes fixed on the path that led to the treasure he had sworn to guard. Lucian's awareness was different now, distant and dreamlike, yet sharply attuned to the island and its ancient pulse. He could feel the stone heart, still clasped in his unmoving hand, its warmth permeating his very essence, binding him to the island's soul. Time slipped away from him, the hours and days blurring into a single endless vigil. The island's secrets, once tantalizingly hidden, unfolded within him, becoming part of his stone-bound memory. He saw flashes of those who had come before him, adventurers and seekers who had fallen to the island's curse, each one leaving a trace upon the stones. Through this new awareness, he understood that he was more than just a guardian now. He was a part of the island, a living memory that stretched back through centuries, connecting him to the countless souls who had sought the same treasure and lost themselves to its allure. As he watched, Lucian became aware of movement among the trees. The statues, the ones who had been there long before he arrived, seemed to stir as if acknowledging his presence, their eyes glowing faintly in the moonlight. He could feel their spirits, echoes of lives long past, sharing fragments of their memories with him, their stories merging with his own. In this strange communion, Lucian came to understand the island's true nature. It was a place of judgment, a realm that tested the hearts of those who sought more than they could claim. The statues were not just guardians. They were the island's way of preserving those who had proven their courage, their sacrifice, or their devotion. In accepting his fate, Lucian had joined them, his spirit woven into the island's fabric, becoming both protector and witness to its endless mystery. As the days turned to weeks, Lucian's awareness remained steady, an unchanging presence bound to the island. Yet his spirit, free from the constraints of flesh, wandered through memories both ancient and recent, learning the island's secrets, understanding the delicate balance between life and stone. The stone heart in his hand pulsed in time with his thoughts, a reminder of the life he had once led, the choices he had made, and the legacy he had left behind. In time, others would come, drawn by tales of the island of living statues and the legend of Captain Lucian Storm. They would find the island as he had, its paths lined with silent guardians, each one a reminder of the lives that had touched this cursed ground. Some would turn back, sensing the danger in the silent stares of the statues. But others, braver or more foolish, would press on, their hearts filled with dreams of gold and glory. And when they arrived, they would see him, a new statue standing among the others, his hand still clutching the stone heart, his eyes forever watching. They would not know the name of Captain Lucian Storm, nor the choices he had made, but they would feel his presence, a silent warning to those who sought what lay beyond reason. For Lucian was now part of the island, his spirit bound in stone, a testament to the price of ambition and the mystery of a treasure that could never be truly claimed. The island held him close, its guardian, its watchful sentinel, a legend preserved within its timeless vigil. And as the island's mist rolled in, cloaking him in its ghostly shroud, Lucian stood in perfect stillness, his soul at peace, his heart bound forever to the secrets of the island of living statues.